Hey everyone, welcome back to DWeb Decoded, a podcast by Filecoin Foundation exploring the intersection of blockchain and the data economy. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and today we're talking to Alex Rawitz, who's co-founder of DIMO, which is a decentralized platform for vehicle data. Alex, thanks so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited to dive into this today. Super interesting niche that you guys have uncovered here in the DePIN world. Maybe to get started, please just give us like the elevator pitch of what is DIMO, and then we can explore from there.
So when we started DIMO, we began by building a vehicle data platform that is decentralized, open, and private. And coming from the automotive industry, we'd seen couple of problems. One, vehicle data is being grossly underutilized by businesses and consumers alike. We believe the root of that is that the data has not been made available to developers so that they can build applications with that data. That's harming consumers who aren't able to actually use their cars. They're beautiful, connected, amazingly tech-enabled cars as much as they would like to. And it's harming businesses that just can't access data as much as they would need in order to perform more advanced diagnostics or more advanced usage-based insurance or all kinds of applications. So we began building DIMO as a platform that any enterprise in the auto industry could adopt to access better vehicle data in a more private fashion. And over the last 6 months, we've realized that, like many people, the end state of really any data that we're collecting in the world is going to be feeding it into an AI agent. And so today, DIMO is an AI infrastructure company built with a lot of the same decentralized infrastructure under the hood. But we're an AI infrastructure company tailored to build vertically integrated AI in the automotive industry.
Amazing. We're going to unpack all that. Maybe first, tell us a bit of just the context of like your background, maybe background of your co-founders. Maybe what's the origin story of the project? How did this all get started?
So our co-founders have a really kind of broad-ranging background between both crypto and the automotive industry. I spent about 4 years in the crypto industry working at Chainalysis, where I was working with protocols, working with financial institutions, helping them actually adopt and wrap their heads around what crypto is and could be to them. Our co-founders came from dealership groups, from GM, from Ford, from Transdev, from Waymo. And all of us kind of had this mix of real world experience in outside industries as well as blockchain experience. One of the things that really inspired us was actually seeing the advent of Helium and the adoption of Helium as a really, really kind of seminal project in the history of crypto, where for the first time, people were able to take crypto incentives and really decentralized technology and apply it to something outside of the financial sector. And that was a really, really big turning point for us, where we realized, okay, here they are taking it into really the telecom world. What other principles of decentralization, of data ownership, can we go and apply to the industries we know, like the auto industry, the mobility industry? And so when we got together in 2021, we were really just kind of exploring these different ideas of how do we take these principles, apply it into the auto industry. And what we realized is that the place to start would be to create this user-owned network of people who are in control of their data, who can sign up their own car up for DIMO, and eventually become users of the applications that developers are building across our future network.
Very cool. And before we start talking about DIMO specifically, I was hoping you could maybe just talk a bit about like the state of the vehicle industry right now, the automotive industry, and why is there maybe a window of opportunity for like a solution like DIMO?
Yeah. The automotive industry is at a really strange point right now. Setting aside all of the tariff shenanigans, which have really rocked the industry in the last year. I mean, we started well before that. The industry is seeing really three major transitions happen at once. One is electrification. Vehicles are going electric. There might be a temporary lull in that while the tax incentives go away, but the industry is going to move in that direction over the long run. It just makes more sense. It's more practical. The other big change is, of course, autonomy. Many companies are, obviously Tesla has FSD, but there's many others that are bringing their robo-taxis and other autonomy to market. And last but not least is connectivity. And all three of those like big major waves, they are interrelated. You have connected cars in order to make autonomy better. You have electric vehicles. They're more connected than they were before because they're all electric under the hood. And so all of those transitions are interrelated, but they really are at an automaker three different, major work streams. It's caused quite a bit of upheaval. It's one of the reasons that you see more new car companies today being started than probably any time in the last, since the dawn of the automotive industry 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. And as cars have become more connected, they've also thrown off tons and tons of data. And so most people think, oh, I'm on my smartphone. I'm generating all of this data from my phone. Cars are generating about 25 times more data when you're driving the car down the road compared to browsing the internet on your smartphone. That data is diagnostic data, what's going on in the car. It's usage data. Where are you driving? How are you driving? There's thousands of sensors in the vehicle that are each producing their own signals. And the reality is, and we hear this directly from automakers, and of course we know it from our experience working at automakers, the vast majority of that data is not being utilized in any way today. The automaker is not even bothering to send all of it off of the car. They've crammed the car full of sensors, and if they don't have a use case for the data, they don't want to pay the AT&T bill or the Verizon bill at the end of the month for sending all that data to the cloud.
Interesting. And yeah, I think like anybody who's, bought a new car recently, or perhaps even been in a new car recently, knows that these things have basically just become giant computers with wheels on them, right? I mean, there's even like this meme from earlier this year when Elon Musk was at the White House with some Teslas and Trump was he's like, wow, everything is computer, right?
Everything is computer. Yeah.
And like,
it's funny, the industry is actually correcting away from that a little bit because there has been, consumers are first off rejecting a little bit of the giant touchscreen. There's been all these studies now after the fact. It actually takes a lot more time. It's like on average 10 seconds longer to like do the thing you want to do. Like when there's just a button to turn on your air conditioner and it's just there, you can do it without looking. But when you have to like navigate and swipe and change, it actually takes a lot longer. And they study this sort of stuff. It's like crazy. Who would go and study how long it takes to turn on your air conditioning in the car? But like they study this for safety purposes because they're trying to figure out how much distraction there is for the driver. And so car companies are going to start bringing buttons back, which is going to be great. If you ask me personally, it's like really nice to be in a car where you can just press a button and know where it is. But if you think about it, and it's a great example, like most people have started to get an app for their car. If you think about what that app does for you, really doesn't do too much. Maybe you can remotely unlock and lock your car. Maybe you can start and stop your car. If you have a Tesla, you might be able to summon your car. And certainly Tesla is by far the leader in this category. But most other automakers, the apps don't really do much for you. And our perspective on that is very simple. Apple gives you a bunch of apps with your iPhone. They're pretty nice. They're more or less basic. You get a basic notepad, you get a basic music app, you get a basic weather app. But the thing that they really want you to do is to use their app store. They want you to go on the app store and find the best notepad app or the one that speaks to you out of the thousands and thousands of choices. And so, mobile phone makers have picked up on this years ago. If you give a phone an app store, it's going to increase the stickiness of the phone. And automakers still haven't come around to that perspective. They're still in the mindset of like, well, if a customer wants to be able to have analytics about their car, we should build the analytics into the app. And if the customer wants to be able to control the charging and optimize the charging of their EV, we should build that into our app. And if the customer wants to be able to answer their emails in the car, we should build that into the car. And we believe that that's just the wrong mentality. And we're working with automakers to try and show them differently. But more importantly, we've been building this open ecosystem to say, hey, look, let's get developers to show up and start building this stuff. Let's get people to start using it. It's kind of like what happened in the traditional financial sector, where it's like, you can go to the banks and tell them, you guys should use DeFi for all these reasons. Or, you go the path of saying, well, look, we're going to make these DeFi products really, really good and successful. And then the banks are going to have to pay attention.
That's super interesting. I love that analogy as well, to the financial sector or even just the app store analogy. Because so basically what you guys are trying to enable is kind of like an app store of things that you can, the app store of apps that are relevant to like your vehicle or like your fleet of vehicles, or if you're a business, like your whatever your interaction is with these vehicles, essentially.
Yeah.
Whether you're the owner or you're the mechanic or you're the the leaser or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But maybe talk a bit about like, you're mentioning like, okay, these cars they're just packed full of sensors, they're generating all this data, and the manufacturers apparently have not found any valuable enough use for this data to warrant like transferring it out of the car, essentially. But like, I mean, maybe like why is it that why are they generating all this data when there's like no use for it, or if they can't find any immediate use for it? And then maybe what are some things that they could use it for, or what are some like kind of emerging use cases that people are discovering? Like, hey, it might actually be really interesting to have this, whatever type of data that like whatever piece inside the car is generating.
Right. So all of these OEMs, like many enterprises around the world, 10, 15 years ago, bought into the data is the new oil idea. And they're like, oh, okay, we need to build up our data lakes. Whoever has the biggest data lake is going to have the most oil, going to have the most value stored away somewhere. And so they all committed to this path of building in all these sensors, and they are certainly finding some value. I mean, if you think about a product like OnStar, which allows, is a great safety product, and it's been around for 3 decades almost. Products like that have certainly been, somewhat successful. There's just, we believe, so much more that can come out of utilizing that vehicle data. I'll give you an example. So one of the app developers that's in our ecosystem has an app called Royal. And what they do is they allow you to submit your charging data if you have an EV and get voluntary carbon offsets back. So this is actually like basically free money that EV owners can get. It works in most states, and there's some caveats to that, but for the most part, you can probably get $100 back per year as an EV driver just from selling your carbon offsets. That's something that the automakers would have to build into their own systems, or you can do what DIMO's done, open up the APIs and say, hey, look, if you as an individual EV driver want to share your data with this other developer, they'll help you get money back. And not all of the applications are actually going to like make you money, but they can likely deliver some convenience for you. So another example that we're working on, we have a very large car dealership group, which is one of our customers. Their goal is to get their customers and their dealership on the same sheet of music about what maintenance and repairs are required. So rather than getting a text from your dealer every like 3 to 6 months, like I get, which says like, hey, it's time for some maintenance. Maybe we can have you come in. We think it's time for some maintenance. This dealer can be super targeted and say, hey, we saw a check engine light pop up. Don't worry. It's not like, a safety issue, but we should get it fixed. We can have you in on Tuesday. Or, hey, we see you're approaching actually 10,000 miles. It's time for your first oil change. Do you want somebody to come to your house and do it for you? And these are the use cases that like can really make the consumer's life so much better. And the really cool part is now all of that stuff can be powered by AI. You don't need to hire a data team to like ingest the data and build on the APIs and figure out, how are we going to use this data? What things are we going to respond to? Let's code up all of those examples. Now you can actually just feed that into an AI, which is where we're building. And as a dealership group, you can just have an AI handle all of those communications.
No, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like now that you have this data, and like previously there just wasn't really there wasn't like an easy way of like utilizing it, right? Like there was just a lot of extra steps involved. Now that we have these AI tools, it becomes a lot more easier to kind of process some of these things, to get insights from these things. And then, the dealerships, the mechanics or whomever can incorporate that directly into their workflows, et cetera. And I mean, I guess I like this because cars have been long used in the blockchain world as kind of this prototype of like what we aspire to be like. Using a blockchain should just be like driving a car, right? Where you just turn it on and you go, and you don't even have to understand how it works. But I think maybe the corollary to that is that most people really have no idea at this point of that these things are really data generation machines. They're producing 25x the amount of data that your smartphone is producing. And I think people, obviously, if people knew that there's like, wow, there's value to this data that they can reap in various ways, they would probably be. I think it's a lot easier to have your dealer ping you when your check engine light goes on than it is to, have to call them and like, okay, I've got to figure out, okay, like, 3 weeks from now, they can get me in at like 7 a.m,
Right.
and like hopefully, or you end up going to your mechanic. And then, I mean, everyone's had the experience where you go to the
Or
mechanic
you
for
put
a
it
simple
off.
check.
I mean, there's billions
Yeah.
of dollars in deferred maintenance that exists out there in the world, in the US alone, because people are just like, they don't know, or they forget to schedule, or they're lazy or whatever. And like, that's a huge opportunity for both for consumers who can take better care of their car, and for businesses who can capture some of that business.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's super interesting. And I think, like, we've all had these experiences where you go to the mechanic and, for a simple checkup and oil change. And then, you walk out with like a $2,500 bill because there's all this other random stuff that the guy found. Whether this is like legitimate or not, or, there's always like kind of a question, but like, you're so, well, I'm going to be safe than sorry. But yeah, if you would have been more preventative, maybe you wouldn't be being hit with this bill. And then if you have more of the diagnostics in place, like, you can tell if, like, okay, does my, head gasket like actually need to be changed, like, or is this guy just kind of pulling my chain?
One of the things that I hear from users a lot is, there are certainly some people out there who are very wary of the, call them predatory players in the industry. It's like, oh yeah, they're trying to charge me $250 for a part that's, $20. I'll just do it myself. Like, okay, there's certainly like some of that out there in the industry, probably a lot of it. But most of the people that I talk to that use DIMO, and I talk to almost a user every single day, for the most part, they kind of understand the deal. They're like, look, I could do this myself, but like, I'm going somewhere where they're just going to take care of it for me. I don't have to worry that like I'm going to install it wrong and fuck up my car. I mean, this is second or third most expensive thing I own. I don't want to fuck it up. And the thing that those people are saying, and where they're like really hoping AI can help them, is when I do have to take care of some maintenance, like, maybe give me the options, explain it to me and say, hey, look, you could do this on your own. The part's $30. Here's the YouTube video. Like, if you want to try it, go for it. But if you don't, you can schedule and you can have it done by Wednesday. Like, that's, I think, just like, it's AI is so powerful because you can train these systems to just give you, it's not just like a single answer you're getting like a whole world of options and processes and actions that you could take. And that's what excites us most about where what this data can unlock, because it can just radically reshape the consumer's relationship with, auto spend is about 5% of the US GDP. Like, it's a humongous segment in the economy. And I think that the spending patterns here are going to be drastically reshaped as more data and more AI tools like meet in the middle and help consumers explore new paths.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think it kind of leads to my next question, which would be like, given just the amount of vehicles on the road, given the amount of data these vehicles are generating, and I guess given like all these kind of external factors, whether it be kind of smart cities initiatives and, kind of the connectivity movement and autonomous vehicles, all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, what do you guys see as like the addressable market here for a solution like this? And maybe what kind of I'd love for you to talk about the traction you guys are seeing right now in terms of like who are the users, whether they're, individual drivers or fleet owners or businesses.
Yeah. We take a very long-term view of what the auto industry is going to look like. And so the projects that we work on are like a very strange mix of things between, hey, we're working with a car dealership group. They're selling devices that are selling cars that are DIMO connected, devices pre-installed. Really, how do we get that extra oil change? How do we make sure the customer's happy? How do we make sure we sell the customer their new car? Very much like rooted in problems of today. Meanwhile, there's actually a smart city project that we're hoping to deploy before the end of the year. We're working with some very big enterprises in Japan and the smart city in Japan. And, they're thinking about the next like 30 years of what smart cities are going to look like. What about the world where we have, people don't own their cars and they're all using rental services. And so a lot of what we've built has always been with the mindset of like, we believe DIMO can be critical infrastructure in any of those instances, particularly when you have autonomous vehicles that are talking to each other or exchanging information, exchanging payments with parking garages and charging systems. We think that, the identity system really that we've created is going to be massively important in that world. So the addressable market to us is anything that moves, anything that is driving itself on its own, eventually gets connected to DIMO. We're just pretty focused on like, how do we have an impact today instead of like waiting for the autonomous vehicles of the future to come into reality. So today our traction, we've connected over 200,000 cars across the US and Europe since we started. We're continuing to build up the consumer base of our consumer app, but a lot of our focus in the last 6 months has come to how do businesses adopt the technology that we've created, like a car dealership group, a warranty company, a rental car company. Typically, we're going in there and we're helping them upgrade their data infrastructure so that they can make better use of the data they already have.
Got it. Well, let's talk a bit about more of just kind of the mechanics and maybe the stack of the solution itself. Yeah. Maybe kind of talk a bit about what role does the blockchain level play? And I do like this concept because it almost feels like you guys are more of like if I was just looking at you guys from the outside, I'd be like, oh, it's more of like an AI IoT type of play than like a blockchain play. But but you guys kind of, obviously it's a really great example of like, a DPIN type of concept. Maybe talk a bit about that. Talk a bit about some of like, how are all the various actors in this network incentivized to to kind of play ball, if you will? How did you guys kind of go about solving some of these initial chicken egg problems, et cetera?
Yeah. So the way we use the blockchain is it's actually quite a multifaceted approach. For one, all of the vehicles are given, and really any device that's within our network is given an identity on the blockchain. And of course, blockchain-based identity is nothing that we invented. It's been around for a very long time. Many people have started. We love it, of course, because it's a great way to take really like non-fungible things in the real world, like cars, and like give them an identity that anyone can tap into. Anyone in the world can tap into the vehicle that I have, my car right outside there, and know, okay, like here's its identity on the blockchain, and how can I access data from it? Another part of what we've built is the permission system is built on blockchain as well. And this is really important because we wanted to create something that is auditable, number one, so that if I share my data with you, we can track that. There's a record of that. There is kind of like typical of blockchain transactions. There's that level of pseudonymity that exists where, your name's not on the transaction, but we have some audit trail of it. And then last but not least, of course, all of the users in the system get a smart account. And this is really cool. We worked really, really hard with some awesome partners, Turnkey and ZeroDev, to build, we were talking earlier about like, how do you make the blockchain, how do you make it disappear for the user experience? Well, we built that. If you download the DIMO mobile app and connect your car, it doesn't feel like you're touching the blockchain at all. It's because we spent months and months and months perfecting this new wallet system. That's what's happening under the hood. And so we have this like tokenized vehicle, and then you can start to explore, how do you plug it into DeFi? How do we bring, automotive loans on chain? How do we do all this other cool stuff? But in order to solve that chicken and egg problem, as you brought up, we created a token incentive for people to use our initial consumer product. So if you download the app, connect your car, you receive some DIMO tokens every single week. You built up a streak over time, so you earn a little bit more tokens. And the tokens are completely unrelated to how much you drive. People ask us all the time, they're like, well, if I drive more, I'll make more data, and that's good. And our response is like, well, we want the data to represent the real world. We don't want, what we don't need is a bunch of data of like people driving around earning tokens because, businesses don't care about that data. They want like data that is representative of how people are actually acting. Like that's the only kind of data that you can really build a business on. And so, for us, we've been very thoughtful about how do we not incentivize things like too much driving. We really just want people to stay connected and maintain that consistent connection. On the business side, in terms of who we go out to, like they actually don't care about the token side of what we're doing. And they're more focused on like, how do we use the actual product? And that's a really, really healthy place for us to be, because opening up the token can of worms for a business is just really, really challenging. So we're happy to just work with businesses that say, hey, look, we want to build an application for the marketplace, and we want it to, make it as successful as possible and grow our business.
So you've been mentioning that there's been some activity of kind of third parties just building different types of apps in the ecosystem. And you mentioned one in particular, but I'd love for you to maybe give us some more color about like what types of things are people building? Like what types of use cases are you discovering? I mean, what are maybe some things that are like, have been identified as like, hey, this would be a great idea if somebody could build this. Like we just, trying to encourage folks to come in and actually do it. But what are some of the kind of the low-hanging fruit opportunities here?
I think one of the most exciting opportunities that's going to, like, at some point when it comes around is going to, go viral and be really exciting to people is like, how do we create games and social experiences around vehicle data? Tens of millions of people are on Reddit forums and Facebook groups dedicated to their car, the, Subaru WRX or Teslas or Mustangs, whatever. Lots of passionate people. Tens of millions of people have Instagram accounts for their cars. And so there's already this like really interesting digital world. People care a lot about their cars. They personalize them. They give them these identities. And how do you actually marry that to connected vehicle data? And so we haven't yet seen the breakout version of this app yet. But you could imagine so many permutations. And I've even talked with automakers about this who are like, oh my God, we would love for something like this to exist. Some kind of like Pokemon Go style thing that takes into account not where you walk, but where you drive. Some kind of, exploration fog of war style game where you can drive and visit new places. And what the automaker we were talking to really wanted to encourage people to visit small towns and, try out, new things, new adventures. It's like very much a go out there and like get on the road kind of car maker. So I think that's where like, like coming back to what connected cars give you today, great. I can turn on my car remotely. Awesome. I can lock my car remotely if I forget to lock it. Like very, very nice things. But at the end of the day, those are utilities. And people don't really get super excited about utilities. They get excited about fun, engaging things like that. And so I really look forward to the day when somebody builds a game on the DIMO network and puts that out to drivers. And it's like, hey, cool, enroll your car in this game, compete in the leaderboard. Let's see what the social experience looks like.
No, that's super interesting. And because you're right, like some people just look at cars like it's just a utility thing, but like some people, like they take these things really, like their car is like, it's almost like their livelihood, or it's like the most important thing that they own, right? Especially dudes, right? With like, we all know guys who have, if they've got their muscle cars or whatever, and they spend their whole Saturday just like working on, this is like stuff that people take pretty seriously, right? So having some kind of like gamified, competitive, or like even just sharing social aspect, it's a super interesting use case.
Strava, but for cars, and then, social groups, but for like, there's all kinds of different permutations of that should exist in my mind. And, we need the developers to go out there and build it.
And then how are you guys thinking about kind of the data privacy angles here? And I realize that like, I think like nowadays if you buy one of these new cars, you're basically, kind of forfeiting any right to like data privacy in some way, right? If you're like agreeing like Toyota's terms of service or whatever. I imagine it's kind of like a sticky problem to navigate, but like, how are you guys kind of incorporating, or how are you guys thinking through some of these like data protection, data privacy angles here? Given that it's not necessarily going into like a proprietary silo like it would be if I'm just, contracting with Toyota to buy this vehicle.
So there's a ton of attention being paid to this in the industry. Europe has already enacted the EU Data Act went into effect. They have provisions around vehicles. And so now in Europe, if you go to your automaker and you say, please delete my data, or send me a copy and then delete the data, they have to comply. And they have to show that they can comply and, usual EU stuff. And there are very similar data protections that are coming here in the US. California is pretty much in line with the data privacy laws of the EU. There are right to repair acts that are likely finally going to get passed after years. And all of that is to say, like, there's a lot of pushback on the automakers who, if they could wave a magic wand, would say, the data stays on our servers. We got it. Don't worry. Our approach, and this is another thing that we talk to the automakers about quite often, is we actually don't, we just like don't like, there are new cryptographic tools. There are new primitives that we can use to just start a better system from scratch. And so within DIMO, when you actually sign up for DIMO, many people assume you sign up for DIMO, I'm giving my data over to Alex and his co-founders who are then going to go sell my data. And that's actually not the case. When you sign up for DIMO, you don't share your data with anyone. It stays in your private data vault. If you want to go share it with other companies, if you want to, we have company partners whose goal is to sell the data. You can go and share it with them. That's up to you. But what we've done, and again, another reason we were building this on blockchain is we create a private key for you, which is your key to the data. And so if you want to go share it, you can. If you want to revoke that data sharing, you can. It's all based on smart contracts, so it's all automated. And we believe that ultimate decision should lie in the consumer's hands. And so when we go to automakers, one of the things that we're helping them understand is here's how you could leverage that infrastructure. And in that world, maybe the data stays stored on your automaker servers, but you still have the benefit of maybe not even giving them access to it. It's, the way we've thought about the system is always, how do we make this look like email where, hey, look, if you want to store your emails with Google, go for it. Like Gmail's great. It's super easy to use. It's awesome. If you prefer to run your own email server at home, you have that option. And so as a user, you could use DIMO. You could just run it at home if you want and store all your own card data on your own.
Super interesting. So really empowering the user with that choice, that optionality of like how they want to use this. My data, if I want to keep it for myself, keep it protected, it's my choice. If I want to sell it to somebody else, monetize it somehow, it's my choice.
Yeah.
How do you see like a decentralized data layer, a centralized layer for data services, such as something like a Filecoin, potentially like overlapping or facilitating, what you guys are trying to build?
We love it. We've always wanted to have as much data stored in decentralized storage as possible. The goal is, of course, like, how do you make this as permissionless and as censorship resistant as possible? How do we build a connected car ecosystem that's censorship resistant? It's kind of a crazy idea, but it's certainly one that inspired us. So we already use Filecoin for certain data storage today. There's a bunch of kind of more static data that we're storing on Filecoin. A lot of the like more dynamic data, certainly lots of this car data we're storing in, we're still using AWS just because we need super, super, super performant data retrieval. And we stay as abreast as we can of all the kind of updates in the decentralized data work. We would love to get everything over to decentralized storage, just because it aligns more than anything with our beliefs philosophically that's really kind of the best user kind of aligned outcome and infrastructure that we could utilize. So it's something that we want to continue to see improve, because we just need a teeny bit more performance out of the data storage and retrieval in order to like put a bunch of car data in there.
Got it. No, I love that. I love that you guys have been thinking about this and are actually putting in practice. And maybe to wrap up here, just kind of, broad open-ended kind of question here, but as we see, looking ahead, maybe like 5-10 years, as we see connected car industry continuing to move ahead, as we see, autonomous cars, as we see smart cities concepts, as we see, AI agents being used in, all sorts of elements within the automotive industry. I'd love for you to maybe paint us a picture of like, kind of what does this all look like, and what type of role do you see DIMO playing in developing this infrastructure?
Yeah. We think a lot about the need for domain specific for vertically integrated AI. Just take, for example, in the auto space, if you own a car, think about the kinds of questions you might wonder. When is now, should I do maintenance now? Do I need new tires for winter? How do I have some damage on my bumper? How should I get that fixed? How much should it cost? Do I have the best insurance? Could I get cheaper insurance? Could I find cheaper gas somewhere? Could I switch to an electric vehicle? there are so many of those questions. And if you plugged those questions into ChatGPT, you would get a very generic answer. It might say, oh yeah, should I switch to an electric vehicle? It'll cough up, yeah, here's some of the benefits of going to an electric vehicle. Here's some of the cons. With data, you can actually map out, where do you drive? Do you drive near chargers? Do you have adequate power at your house? Like, do you drive long distances where you're going to need to stop repeatedly for charging? Or are you just mainly driving in your neighborhood and you'll always be charged up fully at home? Like, what you can do, what AI can do with data becomes way more powerful. And so what we're building is, how do we unlock very industry specific data so that customers can use that in AI products? So we're integrating dozens and dozens of sources of data that ChatGPT and Claude and all these other tools don't have access to. And as we feed those things into the AI, it becomes much more intelligent in the way that it can answer questions for consumers. That's going to be true very much of kind of the human interaction over the next 5 to 10 years, and eventually is going to move to the point where the car is asking these questions on its own. The car is saying, hey, can I, as it drives around on its own, can I find a cheaper charging point? Can I find an open parking space? Do I need new tires? The car will ask its questions itself. And so our goal is to really be the hub of all of that proprietary industry data and make that as accessible as possible to the AI agents that are running the vehicles of the future.
I love that. I love the vision. I mean, it's super practical, but it's like, when you just understand, kind of where things are going and just the trends that we're already seeing in the automotive industry, this just makes so much logical sense of like why we're going to need a solution like this. And it's really cool to see you guys kind of at the forefront of this. So congratulations on all the success so far, and wishing you guys continued success. How can folks find you or learn more about the product if they want to get involved?
Pretty easy. If you want to use the DIMO product, you can go to DIMO.co. You can also go to Amazon.com and search DIMO automotive device or something of that nature. And if you're a developer, if you're like, hey, cool, I want to build that social experience, that Pokemon Go for cars, that sounds fun. You can go to DIMO.org, which is the open source. That's the DIMO Foundation's website. That's sort of the open source platform that you can read more about there. So please check it out, DIMO.co, DIMO.org, and we'd love to have more people in the ecosystem.
Amazing. Well, Alex, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you joining us here on DWeb Decoded. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you with the next episode.